I love to entertain. That's my favorite. I'll stand out there and do a comedy routine while the band.
Let's do some comedy. Let's be funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey everybody, this is TJ Cates with Nashville Entertainment Weekly. I'm with
Jill Cinnamon and
Jeannie Seeley.
Can you believe this? How did you find time to come to our little music row office?
I've been sitting
studio?
waiting for you to call me.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Well, my battery's been dead on my phone, so I finally
Yeah.
got it charged, and we made the call, and now you're here.
we're
No,
just so
I'm
blessed to have you.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. We do appreciate you inviting us by. It's great what you're doing. You let us talk about anything I hear.
Yeah. Right.
Anything you want to. Look at this. I've got to adjust my lighting while we're here. Nobody
Okay.
sees outside the camera. Now you have a lot of things going on. 50 years. This year is
Yeah.
the 50-year anniversary of when you actually played on the Opry.
My first appearance was in June of 1966.
That's pretty
Made
amazing.
my first guest appearance, and "Don't Touch Me," my signature song, was hitting about that time. And so they invited me to be on. And as I was traveling on the road with Porter Wagner at that time,
Love Porter Wagner.
So neat.
yeah, they would call me and say, okay, your record moved up to number such and
Oh
such
my
this
gosh.
week. And my question was always, yes, but did Mr. Divine call from the Opry? Because I wanted
That's-
the Opry
that was the
so
target.
bad.
That was a big
Right.
deal back then, and years later, the Opry is still around, and you have many friends. They're there, and you can just walk in anytime you want to. You don't have to buy a ticket. You get to go under the awning in the back. But back then, there was no technology. There was barely television.
No.
And that was it. You go around, and you have your radio played, and you check the magazine when it gets published.
Right.
And you find out if you're in the chart, and then you want to go play at the Opry. That
Oh,
was the big deal.
it
There was no
was.
CMT award shows and all this crazy stuff.
Not until, let's see, 67 was the first CMA Awards. And it was not televised. So 1968 was the first year it was televised. But yeah, I grew up listening to the Opry. My mother said I found it on the radio dial when I was 4, and I could not understand why every time I turned that on that I couldn't hear the Grand Ole Opry. I still think we should be able to hear it anytime we turn on the radio,
Right.
and pretty much we can now. We live in such a great time.
I agree with that.
Wow, you can hear anything you want any hour of the day or night. It's amazing.
Yeah, and you were saying that the Opry, they film it and it's live. It's once you go
Yeah.
out there, you're not just there to perform to the audience of 5,000 people,
No,
but you're also on television.
well, you're on Sirius Satellite Radio.
You're on the radio. Yeah.
Right.
Live right then. It's going all
That's
over the
incredible.
world, and it's amazing. Like I said, I don't get stage fright. It's not just that. It's a great adrenaline rush. And but if I stop to think who all was listening, I probably would get intimidated.
Let's
but
talk
I
about.
don't.
Let's go back 50 years. Let's talk about who you were listening to on the radio that inspired you to start doing this.
Well, when I was a kid, of course, Ernest Tubb was so hot
We
when
just
I
heard
was
some
a
Ernest Tubb
child,
stories.
and I loved Ernest Tubb. And one of the great thrills, actually, when "Don't Touch Me" first hit, Ernest invited me to be a part of his television show.
Oh my goodness.
So neat.
And that was awesome. And I did get to travel with him some. One of my big compliments, and I don't know if everybody could understand this, but Ernest had had some bad experiences, I guess. I don't know what the deal was. I didn't ask. But he had said there would never be any girls on his bus with the Texas Troubadours. But once I was on the TV show with him, there would be cities where I couldn't fly, and they wanted me on the live show because they wanted to see who they saw on television.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So finally, the management said, Ernest, would you just try it? So he did, and after a few trips, they asked him, said, well, how's it going with Jeannie on the bus? He said, it's great. You never know there's a girl on the bus. She
Right.
fits right in with
That's
those
pretty cool.
troubadours. Yeah, one of the guys.
One of the guys. Let's talk about your new CD and your new album that's coming out.
I'm really excited about this. I had misgivings about doing this CD because there are 14 songs that I wrote. And you go
lot.
from being excited, this is my stuff, to saying, maybe they're not good enough. Maybe I should have.
Oh, that's so silly.
know.
You've actually had numerous people sing your songs that you've mentioned. Ernest Tubb, Merle Haggard, Dottie West.
Connie Smith.
So many people.
My dad loves Connie Smith. I mean,
Oh,
actually
yeah.
physically loves her.
Well,
I heard
we
that
all
name so
do.
much whenever we went in.
Well, I was thrilled too because Connie and Marty both came in and sang on that song with me.
Wow.
Marty Robbins?
Marty Stewart.
Marty Stewart, okay.
Yeah, to
Gotta
make
get my Marty straight.
and Marty said, Celie, to make it even more special for you, he said, I went out to my museum. He brought in a Hank Williams Sr. guitar that
my
he
goodness
played on the
gracious.
session, and one of Mother Maybelle Carter's
Oh, no
guitars
way.
to play on it.
Incredible.
exciting.
I was just thrilled that Marty put that much in. I was just glad he came by, but he was so into the project.
He's Marty. I've always watched him, and it's like in what was like the '90s whenever he started gaining a lot of pop. He seemed like he was back in time. He never really seemed to be like current. His music was current. He was playing some good music, but he seemed like he really loved the original days of the Opry.
He's
I always
an
picked
old
up on that.
soul.
Plus, he's got really good hair. I always loved his hair. man.
Yeah,
He had
he's got
killer hair.
entertainer hair.
He has
doesn't
entertainer
he?
hair, and he dresses.
So do you.
He dresses.
Thank
you.
you.
You have wonderful hair. we're real fond of our hair, so we talk
Well,
about it.
that's
We
good.
are.
Well, we're in show business. We're supposed to be, you know.
Exactly.
But, another thing on here that's so fun, years ago, I looked around one day and it seemed like most of the girls, most of my peers had gotten divorces. Jesse was still married to Waylon Jennings at the
Yeah.
time, and I was still married to songwriter Hank Cochran at the time. And I just, for fun, wrote this song called We're Still Hanging In There, Ain't We, Jesse? We talked about Dottie had gotten a dad, said Dottie traded Bill for a drummer, you know. And one line it said, Jan couldn't live with Big Harlan.
Oh, my
Tammy
goodness.
finally gave up on Jones. We still got old Hank and old Waylon. Of course, that's almost like being alone.
That's a songwriter for you.
That's beautiful.
it.
That's
So
awesome.
anyway,
It's so first person
the only
maybe not
two
wrong.
that are left though now is Jan Howard and Jesse Coulter. So I asked Jan to come in and sing harmony with me on the
Wow.
choruses, which she did. And in fact, when we were listening to it back, I said, Jan, when I sing that line, Jan couldn't live with Big Harlan, I said, why don't you throw in some ad-lib like Sure Couldn't?
Oh my goodness.
So we played the line, and Jan says, "Sure as hell couldn't."
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
I mean, with total feeling,
Right.
you know.
Hilarious.
And then I sent the file to Arizona, and Jessie, I asked her to take my voice off the last chorus and come in singing "We're Still Hanging In There, Ain't We, Jeannie?" So that's one of the really fun things
That's
on there.
awesome. And I really want to talk about Dottie West because you've had a long friendship with her.
Mm-hmm.
And recently you did a memorial with her.
For the 35-year anniversary, is
Right.
that? Is,
25
25,
years
that was
since her
so
death,
fast, though.
yeah. I
Time
can't believe
flies.
it's been 25 years in one way and in another. It's so long. I would love to see her again, and I believe I will.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dottie and I met, and I was still living in LA at the time, and she came out to work the Palomino Club, and of course I was there first row.
You had to meet her.
First table, yeah. And she was so easy to meet. I mean, she was always accessible to everybody. But we just clicked right from the beginning
Isn't that
that
funny?
night. We all went back to my house after the club closed and
The Palomino
played
Club.
guitar.
That's
yeah.
so legendary.
Oh, it is.
I love the way that you
absolutely.
speak about these people and all the people that we all listen to and hear the legends of, and you just talk to them first person.
Well, that's kind of been my life,
love
you
that.
know. Yeah, Dottie and I were just the kind of friends that you called at 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, when you got through with everything and everybody else was done with you. We'd
Just
call
annoying.
and talk to each other. Shared, you know, I had one birth sister whom I loved dearly, but she and I did not have the same bond that I have with my entertainer
I
sisters.
know what you're talking about on that one.
Because we didn't have the same life goals. We
Yep.
didn't understand the same disappointments that
Mhm.
that my friends.
Well, I'm glad that you found each
Yeah.
other. That's
Oh,
really special.
It was a great
it
friendship.
was- what great way to honor
still
her.
is. And I love her children. I still stay in touch with Shelley and Carrie came out to the. We planted a cross for those who didn't know. My friend Ron Harmon came up with the idea. He said, "Let's do this," and he said, "Will we get in trouble for putting it out there?" And my husband's a lawyer, and he said,
There you
"Just
go.
I'll
do
talk
it."
to him. That
Yeah.
man cracks
He's
me up.
pretty great.
I like him.
He's so funny.
Right.
He said it's easier to get forgiveness than it is
That's
permission.
permission.
Go ahead
That's
and put
exactly
it
right.
out there. But it's right at the exit where Dottie's accident happened.
Yeah.
And
We got
it's-
to watch it on television on the news. And we
yeah,
cried out there.
it's going to be memorialized even better in a documentary later on that will go all over. But we
Yeah.
wanted to remember that.
Were you at the Opry the night? Because she was actually on her way to perform, correct?
I was there. I was on the first part of the first show, and then I left. And I remember hearing about it.
you heard it on
and
the radio, or did somebody call
Somebody
you?
called me, and I
Must have been
cannot
devastating.
tell you who. And the rest of that night and the following days were just a blur.
You will
to
see her
me.
again. I know what you're talking about. You're going to go to heaven.
Absolutely.
You're going to
Well,
sing,
you-
and you're going to do everything together.
The sad thing was for me, see, I had a bad accident in 1977, and Dottie was at that hospital with me all of the time,
sweet.
coaching me on. And even after I was confined to home, she came out and got me and took me out to her place to get me out and a break away. And then when I sat in the hospital with her, and I couldn't even see her, and I couldn't help her. It's a most helpless feeling in the world
Yeah.
when you're
It's
sitting
amazing.
there,
Just I
nothing
think
you
that
can
she
do.
knew you were there. and it
Yeah, I
comforted
hope
her.
she did.
She did. Well, let's talk about your music one more time. I want to talk about this.
Oh,
What's your
yeah.
favorite song on here?
You know, the
What do you-
first one that, because Ernest Tubb was so special and he had recorded this song, when I wrote the song, sometimes I do, all I could hear was Ernest Tubb. And I remember being so nervous thinking, I can't believe I'm pitching a song to Ernest Tubb, and I was going to be so devastated if he didn't like it. But he did. So I did it, but where he did it in the Ernest Tubb shuffle style, I kicked it up to Western swing, because I love swing.
Ooh, I
And
love
Your
swing
dancer.
too.
We're hearing stories. It's popping out.
Yeah.
That's, yeah, that's one of my favorites. Also, the other one, my other favorite, is called Anyone Who Knows What Love Is. And that's actually the first song I ever had published, or the first song I ever had recorded. I was the secretary at Liberty Imperial Records in LA. I'd stayed after work to use the piano to write the song. The next day in the A&R meeting, they buzzed me to come in, so I went in with my shorthand tablet, really
That's
dating
so
me,
cool.
because I assumed that's what they wanted me to. Sometimes they'd call me in not to write a letter, but to take lyrics down
Okay.
and type them up. So he said, "No, you won't need that today. I want you to sing the song you were writing last night."
Nice.
And
They
there-
were looking for material for Irma Thomas, who was a legendary R&B
Uh-huh.
artist from New Orleans. And she recorded, I think she had like a top 5 R&B record and a top 15,
What year?
what we called top 40 back then.
What year was that?
63.
Okay.
I was
Because you talked about
23
shorthand.
years
My mom
old.
was a church secretary. A
Incredible.
lot of shorthand.
Yeah.
I wonder if can you write songs in shorthand? If
I
if
have,
it's just the ideas are flooding out.
If I'm trying to take down the lyrics of
still do
another
that.
song, I can still do
I love
some
that.
of it. Yeah.
How neat.
It's once you learn something,
Yeah.
kind of like riding a bicycle, although I'm not that good on a bike. My husband and I bought those 3-wheel bicycles.
You did.
Oh,
Nice.
they are so fun.
Oh, good.
That's fine.
Of course, he wrecked his. He got a little too speedy on
Well, he's
the
a tall
turn.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He broke his collarbone.
Oh,
I gotta tell you,
no.
he's so funny. The doctor said, I think we're just gonna let Mother Nature heal that. He said, you'll have a lump on your shoulder. And Jean said, that's okay. I got a chip on the other end.
That's funny. So it evens out.
It does.
It's so funny.
great.
I
It's a
enjoyed
great
meeting
time.
him, and he said, "What does that lawyer know parking mean in front of us?" Like, I mean, it kind of. He said, "Well, I'll park there anyway. Let's see what happens." I'm
Let's see what happens.
He's so funny.
Yeah. You guys have the best attitude. You guys are living the best lives, and I'm so glad that the Opry is still going with your
Me too.
music, and it's still out there for all these wonderful people like you.
Well, I love all the new music that's coming out. I
Who do
know
you
a
like?
lot of the younger ones don't. Well, of course, I have such respect and love for Carrie
knew
Underwood.
you would say that.
because
She's great.
Well, she's not only a
She's a wonderful
tremendous
person.
talent, but all well-rounded person, and she loves the tradition, and she has the
She respects
respect, and
it.
she wants to carry on the Grand Ole Opry too. I think all of us that that know and love the Opry. We appreciate what it's done for us, but we're also very aware that we have a responsibility to carry it on. There are changes, and a lot of people scream about the changes coming in, but you know what that means to me? That just shows how much the Opry is loved. Because when you love something that much, you're afraid any change might spoil it. But it's not. It's only strengthening the Opry, and it's carrying it into the next generation, like my generation did.
Do you remember the first night that you met Carrie Underwood? Was it at the Opry?
Yes, it was. I got to introduce her one of the first times there. I've
Great.
introduced her several times. And I always, when I introduce her, I always say, would you help us welcome home
Oh, that's nice.
to
'Cause,
the
yeah, she's a
Opry,
member.
Carrie? And she sent a message saying thank you for that.
I bet that meant a lot to her.
Yeah.
Well, it means a lot for us to have you here, and thank
It
you so much
does.
for your
It
time.
means
And it's
so
been
much.
wonderful. Our
Appreciate
doors
you.
open every day. Anytime that there's anything
You
you
have
want,
to come back.
You want to come by for story
I
time?
would love to come
Please.
back.
We will
And
give you a
please
key to
come.
the door, and you come in. And I would love
Yeah.
to see you and your friend Bill. Anybody that wants to come in and talk about what used to happen here on Music Row, because I've been around forever. I went the first time the Opry. I think it was 1972 with my grandfather out of Chicago. We rode all the way from Chicago. Then he took me back home to Memphis with my dad. But I just respect everything that the Opry is.
Yeah.
And I like the new country, and it's fun. Most of it's okay. But I really love to hear stories of the way that it used to be, the way that it should still be.
Right.
And I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of the respect. I love
The
that you
main
said Carrie
thing,
respect it.
I love the new sound, and like I said, it has to bring the new people
gonna
in.
evolve a little bit.
The one thing I don't want to ever see changed, and the younger artists are a little hesitant to do it, but we always had the open dressing room policy and in and out of each other's dressing rooms, and you can see some of them, they're a little afraid at first, but after they've been there a few times, they
It is like
they
a
come
family.
in.
it
I
is.
always try to go meet the new artists before I introduce them on stage if I can, to build a
I
little
don't think you
rapport.
know how
So
much
nice.
that means to them. I
Oh,
bet they're just an awe when you just
I know
pick
what
her
it
at the
meant
door.
to me.
Okay, there you
So
go.
hopefully it means the same thing to them. I'm very honored I get to have the Minnie Pearl designated dressing room now.
You kidding me?
Ooh.
So that means a lot to me. And Mr. Fisher said, well, you know, actually, you're one of the few here that really knew Minnie, so it's as it
What a
should
sweet,
be. So
amazing,
you
fun
come out
person.
and see me. My dressing room is open too.
Thank
Okay, well, we'll come out and
We'll-
see
we'll
you
have
and
some fun.
promise anytime that you have a story you want to come by and share something.
You
we
come
will-
out there and we'll create some new ones.
Let's do it.
Okay.
That would
Okay,
be
we'll
so
do that.
fun.
All right.
That would
Well,
be
thank you
amazing.
so much for
you.
coming in. You're
Uh-huh.
wonderful. This has been TJK with Nashville Entertainment Weekly here on Music Row with.
Jill Santabanez and
Jeannie Seeley, come see us.
let's go.